Hey guys, this video is a more in-depth look at two of the battles from the notes. There's a lot of battles that happen in between these two that we're just going to skip over because I don't want to overwhelm you with stuff. But the two battles I'm going to focus in on are the first Battle of Bull Run, which was the first big battle of the Civil War, and the Battle of Antietam, which was the bloodiest day of the Civil War. I've been to both battlefields. That's kind of why I'm talking about those two, and they were in the notes. So the first Battle of Bull Run, the Union Army, which was slightly larger than the Confederate Army, they marched down from Washington. They stop at this town called Centerville, and they scout out the area, and they realize that the Confederate Army, these red blocks, are behind Bull Run Creek. The reason why the Confederates chose Bull Run Creek is because it's easy to defend, right? The Union are going to have to, because it's fairly deep water, and it does kind of have a current. So if you're gonna cross, you have to cross at these certain bridges or fords. The ford is just a shallow place. If you remember when we played Oregon Trail, right? You could ford the river, which usually didn't work out well. You always want to pay the Indian, or you want to pay the ferry if there is one. Sometimes you don't have a choice. Either way out. But anyway, so the Union realized that would be suicide, right? Trying to cross these bridges with all these guys aiming at you, not going to do it. So what they do is they send some units to kind of act like they're going that way to keep the attention of these guys, like, hey, they're attacking. So keep their attention over here, when really the attack comes from over here. They send their army around. It's called, they're outflanking, right? They're going around the side of the Confederate Army where they don't have any guys. They cross, and they take them by surprise. And it looks like the Confederates are going to lose because they can't get guys over there fast enough. But what happens is fate kind of steps in, and another Confederate army is being shipped in. They shipped in, but they're on a train, but whatever, you know what I mean. They get moved in on a railroad, even though the South didn't have a lot of railroads. Ironically, they're the first to use railroads in a battle. So this Confederate army shows up, and the soldiers have just been crammed into these railroad cars, and they unload, and they make a line here on Henry House Hill, which I'll talk more about here in a second. And this is where they stop the Union. They show up just in time to hold the Union back. This is where Stonewall Jackson stands like a stone wall. That's where he gets his name. And the Union keep attacking him time and time again. His guys won't retreat, and they're just pouring fire into the Union. And then finally Jackson realizes time is right, and he tells his men to fix bayonets, which means lock the blades onto the end of their guns, and charge down the hill. He tells them to yell like furies, which is a fury is like a demon sort of thing. So he tells them to yell like demons, and that's kind of the birth of the Confederate yell, the rebel yell, I should say, not the Confederate yell, the rebel yell, which is kind of a high-pitched, like woo-hoo. It sounds stupid when one person does it, but if you had a whole like thousands of people doing it, apparently it would make the Union soldiers, it would send chills down their spine. Just whoa. They knew the Confederates were coming and that they were angry, you know. So he charges. He tells the guy to charge down, and that makes the Union just start running. They're not experienced, right? So they take off running, and once one group of guys starts running, the other guys are like, "Wait, why are they running? Oh, I want to run too." And next thing you know, the whole Union army is just—they call it the Great Skedaddle back to Washington. They're just throwing down their knapsacks, their backpacks with all their gear in it. They're throwing down their guns, whatever, trying to get away from the Confederates because they're so freaked out. They've never seen battle before, so you know. Ironically, some of the senators and stuff, some of the politicians from Washington came out to watch the battle. Like they brought their families. They wanted to see the big battle, so they had a picnic and stuff, and they got caught up in the retreat too. Yeah. The Union realized after this battle it wasn't going to be an easy win. It wasn't going to be over by Christmas. So, anyway, so here's, oh, there we go. This is a painting done by Don Troiani. He's a famous Civil War artist who does paintings. But this is Stonewall Jackson and telling his men to charge. Um, and I want you to notice something, which I'm going to talk about here. So if you know about the Civil War, and really any war, you need to have team colors, right? In the American Revolution, the American Army didn't really have very good uniforms, but the British had red coats. So if a guy has a red coat, he's probably the bad guy if you're the Americans. In the beginning of the Civil War, a lot of these guys are wearing, like Stonewall Jackson is wearing his old Union uniform, so he's wearing a blue uniform. And there's other units, there's none in this picture, but other guys are wearing blue uniforms even though they're Confederate. And some of the Union guys are wearing gray uniforms. And anyway, so eventually they're going to have team colors where the Union wear blue and the Confederates wear brown or gray or whatever they can afford, because they don't have factories. So anyway, this is Stonewall Jackson in his Union uniform. Here's some of the other really crazy militia uniforms that the different armies had. And they learned real quick that these uniforms, they're great for parades and stuff, but not so good for battles. Like here's a group of Scottish immigrants from New York. They wore kilts and stuff. There's a story, one of their guys before the battle was chasing a chicken, and he tripped over a rail fence, and they found out that he was wearing it, true Scotsman, which means nothing on underneath it because he fell. Anyway. Here's a guy wearing kind of early camo, I guess, wearing green. This guy's wearing an Italian-looking hat with he's probably an Italian immigrant. These guys were firemen from New York. They were called the firemen Zouaves. The Zouaves were guys that wore these little hats. Yeah, that's an easy definition. So the firemen would wear these red shirts, and so these guys just wore their red shirts, which makes you stand out. And yeah, these were the Louisiana Tigers. They called them that because they had the striped pants. The butterfly hussars, because they were all fancy like butterflies. So yeah, these uniforms, a lot of them didn't last. Oh, here's this guy from Mississippi. He's got this red lines on it. Anyway, a lot of these uniforms did not last past Bull Run. They realized, yeah, this is stupid. So another thing that caused confusion, because there were several instances where Union guys shot at Union guys, Confederate guys shot at Confederate guys. There was an instance where Confederates were charging a cannon, so some Union cannons, and the Union guys looked and they're like, "Oh, hey, those are our guys! Don't shoot at them!" And then they found out too late that they're actually the enemy. So part of that problem, other than the uniforms, was the flags. This is a Confederate flag. This is the first Confederate flag. A lot of people don't recognize it. I have one of these in my classroom, and nobody knows it's a Confederate flag. In fact, a lot of students ask, "Well, Mr. Rory, what's that flag from?" I'm like, "It's a Confederate flag." They're like, "That's not the Confederate flag." They think of the X, which I'll get to in here in a second. So if you have this flag, that's the Union flag at the same time. And if the wind's not blowing, because every regiment had a flag, if the wind's not blowing and the flag's just kind of, it's just a clump of red, white, and blue, yeah, I'm not gonna who's who. So the Confederates decide to get a new flag called the Southern Cross or the Battle Flag. It's the one that has caused a lot of controversy. So anyway, yeah, here's it's square so that it's identifiable from the Union flags that were rectangles. It's got an X on it so that you know it's not the Union. So it caused less confusion. It used less material. Anyway, so yeah, this is the one that's controversial. So here's some pictures of me and my cousin at Stonewall Jackson's position in Manassas. Here's where he had his cannons, obviously. My cousin, I don't know what he's doing there. He was checking to see if it had rifling on the inside of the cannons. So it looks like he's about to get his head. Here's his statue. I thought it was funny that Stonewall Jackson didn't look like this. Look at his horse. It's like his horse has been to the gym too. My goodness, on steroids. So yeah, Stonewall Jackson was a regular looking guy. He wasn't all muscular like that. So that's why I'm doing that stupid pose. And hope you like my chanclas. Right? Is that how you said it? I don't know. Whatever. Here's the Bull Run Creek. So it doesn't look like much, but if you had to cross it while people are shooting at you, all of a sudden it's kind of a big deal. All right, and here's the stone house. I promise my cousin's not peeing on it. He was looking at something and he's got his hand. But this is kind of in the middle of the battlefield, and it was used as a hospital in between. It was used as a hospital after the battle, and apparently it's haunted. Not sure. I don't think it's haunted. But I don't really believe in ghosts. But anyway. So yeah, this is. I included this picture because everybody thinks he's peeing on the side of the house, but he's not. He thinks there's. When I asked him, because I looked at the picture, he's like, "No, I was looking to see if there's like bullets. If there's bullets like lodged into the stone house." And I was like, "Yeah, okay." Anyway, here is the Union. This is where the Union. So here's Bull Run Creek over here. You can't see it because of all the trees. The Union moved around and then came this way. And so this is where they had their cannons. The stone house, you can't even see it. It's right here. There's a hill that goes down and then up. This is where Stonewall Jackson's guys were. That's the statue that I was standing by. That's all the cannons where my cousin was putting his face into the cannon. This is the Henry House. That's a visitor center. That wouldn't have, pretend that's not there. That wouldn't have been there. But yeah, so the Union were firing their cannons here. Really sad story. Mrs. Henry was an older lady that refused to leave the house. And this happened a lot in the Civil War. People refused to leave their homes, even though they knew there was going to be a battle. Most people were smart enough to get out of there. But anyway, apparently, if I remember correctly, a cannonball, because the Union are firing this way, a cannonball flew through her roof and exploded and killed her, I believe. But anyway, so this is where Stonewall Jackson stood like a stone wall, got his name. Another thing about that whole story, it was a Confederate guy that gave him that name. He said, "There's Jackson standing like a stone wall." Some people, we don't really know if he meant that sarcastically or if he meant that like some people think he meant it like, "There's Jackson standing like a stone wall. He wouldn't come help us." Because his guys were struggling up here on this hill. Stonewall Jackson sat back there and wouldn't come help him. He's like, "No, I'm staying on this hill." So some people think it was sarcastic, like, "There's Jackson like standing like a stone wall." Other people think the more accepted story is that it was a compliment. "There's Jackson standing like a stone wall." We don't know because the guy that said it was shot and killed in the battle, so not really sure. But anyway, I think that's okay. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to end this video, and then I'm just going to make another one about the Battle of Antietam because this went on longer than I thought it would. So my apologies. So I will post another video about the Battle of Antietam, the bloodiest day of the Civil War. All right, I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching.